Visitor Q is very not good. It's a low-budget Japanese art house film directed by Takashi Miike, who also made the popular classic Ichi the Killer. Like most art house films, it's definitely not made for mainstream audience, and it's made for a more niche audience, you know, the kind of people who enjoy this bullshittery. In this video, I definitely won't be including many clips due to the graphic nature of the film. However, here's my synopsis. I'd also just like to put a huge trigger warning here. It explicitly shows themes of drug use, prostitution, rape, necrophilia, murder, etc. Please click off the video now if any of these things trigger you or make you uncomfortable, because we're going to be talking about them a lot. So the film opens with this title card and proceeds to show a father and his prostitute daughter having intercourse. And in the next scene we see the introduction of the visitor, who hits the father over the head with a rock, thereby committing assault and at least several fashion sins. Black leather pants and a tight red patterned shirt is quite the combo. There is literally no explained reason for the visitor to do this. I guess he just felt like assaulting someone in the street. That seems to be a recurring theme with this film. There's no reason for any of these things to happen, they just do. And I feel like that's not a great way to write a film. After this we see the father's 13-year-old son beat his mother because he doesn't like the toothbrush she bought him. Later, the police at his school start sending fireworks through his bedroom window. This is a scene that goes on for way too long. We then see his mother injecting heroin. In the next scene, his father is hit over the head with a rock yet again by the visitor. They both go home together, and for some reason the father lets the visitor stay. That's not explained either. It doesn't make sense. After another very long and pointless scene, we see the father watching old tapes and discover that he was raped by a group of teenagers, all of whom look like they could have been members of NSYNC in the 90s. The next day, the father sees his son being beaten up by schoolmates, and instead of intervening, obviously he decides to film it. As one does, I guess. We soon discover that the mother is a prostitute, and then she has lactation sex with the visitor. For no apparent reason, just because shock value. At dinner, her son throws a bowl of hot soup at her face, and in retaliation, she throws a knife at him, but it misses. The next day, the father sexually assaults his co-worker, and in doing so accidentally chokes her to death. And then there's a pretty disturbing necrophilia scene, and then he and his wife dismember her. Pretty much every single character in this film is despicable. Personally, I was completely unable to empathize with any of the characters, even in their darkest moments, because they're all such horrible people. As well as this, they all have pretty much no personality, or super plain, boring personalities, and it's clear the characters aren't well fleshed out at all. Almost no thought was put into creating them. This lack of connection with the characters makes the film so difficult and boring to watch. When the schoolmates come back to bully the son, his parents rush out and promptly murder them all. The son then thanks the visitor for bringing his family closer together, and the visitor leaves. The visitor then meets the daughter on the street and bashes her over the head with a rock. She then returns home as a result of her injuries, and that's pretty much the entire film. What the fuck is this plot? The film has pretty much nothing to offer story-wise, and the structure of the plot is just so bad. A good plot would be something along the lines of thing happens, and as a result of thing, this happens, and as a result of that, this happens, and so this happens, and so on and so forth. You know, there's kind of like a flow, there's a chain of events happening there. So each event is a consequence of the previous event. But in Visitor Q, it just feels like having a bunch of unrelated random shit just thrown at you in a shitstorm of crap. Because of this, the plot if you could call it that, is incredibly difficult to follow. Though granted, this could be down to poor translation of the film and language barriers, you know, having to read subtitles that maybe weren't translated so well. But I don't think it's 100% down to that. I think it's also just down to lazy writing. Because of the absence of any significant plot points and the fact that there's no wider message hidden in the film or no underlying thing, it just makes the entire movie seem pointless and like I've wasted an hour and 20 minutes of my life, which I did. The point of The Visitor is to bring the family closer together in the end, or some shit like that. But why would that matter to me, the viewer, if I don't give a shit about the characters? Why should I care about the personal development of these people if they don't show any signs of bettering themselves or growth, or don't have any likable traits or anything that's redeeming? Visually, the film isn't much to look at either. The colour is drab and grey and the set design is, you know, pretty standard. It's nothing special. Visuals aren't bad, they're just bland. This does make sense as Visitor Q is supposed to be in the style of like a documentary or a home movie, but it still looks boring and it feels like there was so much wasted potential with what could have been done here. There are some pretty-ish shots, but they're definitely few and far between. There's really nothing special about the sound and the story either. They're pretty bland, it's just standard stuff. I can't really complain about the sound, it's just simple. They didn't really go wrong with what they've done. It's just nothing really. Most of the appeal of Visitor Q comes from its shock value, but once you look past that, the film is kind of boring. Shock value doesn't equate to quality. Visitor Q definitely wasn't intended to be a masterpiece. I'm not even sure if Takashi Miike intended to make something good. I wasn't expecting much from this film to begin with, but the fact that it was never intended to be good doesn't just mean that it's not bad. The whole point of the film was to test the boundaries of what can be done in a low-cost film, and it definitely fulfilled its purpose in that way. It was created for a film festival as part of 6 films, I think. Each were all low budget, but as a film in itself, I think it's trash. In conclusion, visuals get a 2 out of 5, sound gets a 2 out of 5, execution gets a 1 out of 5, structure gets a 2 out of 5, story gets an average of 3 out of 5, adding up to a grand total of 10 out of 40 or 25% Gaki approval. Please remember that these are just my personal opinions, and if I'm wrong, or you know, you have a different opinion, I'd love to discuss it with you in the comment section. I mean, maybe I'm missing the whole point of the film. Just keep it civil. Just kidding, I'm right and everything I say is the objective truth.